All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Mary Lee. It's just a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much. So I'll start with a little bit about me. Mom of three. That's our Christmas card from last year. Taken in a photo studio in London. Pretty good. Highly recommend. All right. Global Relay works with all major financial services and regulated companies, including pharmaceuticals, oil and gas, and we work with some of the largest tech companies to help monitor any wrongdoing. That could include sexual harassment or trade manipulations or market abuse, etc. And we have an AI surveillance layer on top of that. So if you have a lawsuit or you want to avoid one, you might need us. Give me a call. So why can I talk about revenue expansion? At Global Relay, I was able to help the customer success organization double their sales, their post-sales, within a year, going from $12 million to $24 million of MRR with a 93% retention rate. So that's close to with like 20,000 customers. And this is just customer success owned growth. And yes, we sold more than sales. So we also grew the team from 20 to 35. We have CSMs in London, New York, Chicago, Raleigh, and Vancouver. That's our original headquarters. And we're still hiring. I'm also the owner of an arts and crafts studio in San Francisco, hosting companies like Google, Meta, Anthropic, Sephora, and Gap. And if you want to do something fun and interesting, come take a look at our website. All right. So retention to revenue is our topic. And Jeff Kushmarek actually recently wrote a LinkedIn post asking about who really owns upsell and cross-sell once companies hit at least $50 million in ARR. And what he said was that once you hit $50 million, the majority of sales come from customers, not prospects. That's huge, and that was very true for our company, and it might be true for yours. Actually, how many of you guys are at least at $50 million ARR? Yeah, so we have a decent number of companies that size. So regardless of your ARR, the new era of CS is that sales is part of our job, even if it isn't. And I think as CSMs, I think one thing that we should take comfort in is that sales does not have to be salesy. The best salespeople really aren't. And CS can stay as trusted advisors because in my experience, the biggest growth and the largest deals have happened when your company does what's right for the customer. I've seen that. When you throw out the idea of sales and you focus on what the customer needs, I saw that we brought in multi-million-dollar deals. Specifically for the instance that I'm talking about, we created a bespoke custom analysis package that we only did for that customer. But then we replicated it then to other customers after we built that bespoke analytics package. And then we also provided bodies. So that's a little bit different, right? Like it's not just SaaS. We provided bodies. We were part of their team. They trusted us, and we basically became part of their team. So there are many different ways to upsell customers. And if you are aligned with their needs, you can get to a place that would benefit both. You can get short-term gains like charging your customers 50% increase in renewals, which I've done. But I think sometimes that feels like a lose-lose or a win-lose. So I think when you align with a customer's needs, you really want to get that win-win, and that's where we want to land, is that win-win. So who should do the selling in post-sales? I will answer that question later in the presentation. One thing I also wanted to point out in this article was that someone asked Jeff, what was the bigger problem? Do you see more breakdowns from CS underqualifying leads or from sales dropping the ball once they get them? And he answered the latter. All right, we're not trying to hate on sales here. Okay. So there's money to be made with customers. And I also thought this article was interesting. It's written by ChurnZero, and they were asking CSMs what skills they felt like they needed the most to get ahead. And as you can see, the number one skill set that CSMs feel they need is sales and negotiation. So when I hire, I actually do look for CSMs who have some sort of sales experience. They might have owned upsells and renewals, but they have to be comfortable with sales conversations. But I also inherited a CS organization with a mixture of skill sets, or maybe your CS organization is now pivoting into more of a sales approach. So enablement and training. So in my case, I had to hire more people with maybe that sales mindset, but I also had to implement an enablement program. And one of my leads, Shaza, created a calendar of training that included product, industry, and soft skills. And product industry is very specific to your company, but soft skills are very transferable and actually sometimes very, very hard to learn. So these are some of the soft skills that I train on. For example, how do you say no to a customer? With a yes and instead of a no. It's yes, I hear you, but and we're going to do this instead. How to ask probing questions. What is active listening? It's not listening. It's summarizing and then it's listening and then summarizing and then repeating. We have to practice this. So we have training and enablement sessions every other week. Every other week, 20 minutes is spent on learning the material, 30 minutes on practicing. And typically, I'll split them up into groups of 3. One person's doing the practicing, one person is being the customer, and one person is observing and providing feedback. And then you switch, and then you switch. So I also implemented CS offsites. I mean, we didn't have that, and some companies have it, some companies do not. And to do more in-depth training. So maybe it's like a full day of training on our new product suite, or it's a deep dive into a certain soft skill. All right, so also, as a CSM, I actually originally came from the world of trusted advisor only. So I wasn't used to sales frameworks, and so I've run across a couple of sales frameworks, and if you're not familiar with these, I wanted to share them with you, because you can learn about it. And if you don't know what these are, that is okay, because you can ask Gemini or ChatGPT. So this is, it's just like, people in sales, like you're like, what is sales? Well, here's some frameworks. All right, so as a CS organization, we need to be comfortable with sales conversations and with selling, no matter whether you really are selling or not selling. But another thing that you need to do is you need to have a different motion for enterprise and SMB. So how many of you guys are set up like this, like enterprise SMB? Anybody like this? Yeah, a few. Yeah, that's very enterprise SMB, and I think that's like probably like the biggest differentiator. How many of you guys are set up like this? So maybe you're transitioning to have a mid-market team, yep, and you have mid-market customers. Those are ready to go to enterprise. Okay, and if you have a lot of customers, you might be setting up your tiers like this. So how many of you guys look like this? Yeah, so complex, a little bit more, at the very top, at the very bottom. Okay, so segmentation is important as you decide what resources you need to deploy at various tiers. Global enterprise, you have to have a team-based approach for sales, team-based. You may also want to differentiate customers. So, for example, strategic customers for us are companies who don't spend a lot of money with us now, but they're our ideal customer profile. Maybe they're above a certain threshold in terms of their revenue and their size, and then also the total number of employees. And then they should be treated like an enterprise customer, even though they spend like, I don't know, $500 with us. And then unless they prove to us that they're not, then we demote them and we put them in that other tier. Every organization has different tiers, but segmentation helps with determining level of service. So who should own sales? I'm answering that question. Depending on whether you're dealing with an SMB or enterprise customer, or depending on your company's stage, here are a few options. So it could be that the AE does all the sales, or it could be that the CSM owns all of the post-sale sales. It could also be like a partnership. It's like there's one CSM for one AE. You could also do that. Or it could be a pod-based approach. So what's interesting sometimes as you go up higher in your tiers, you might actually be okay with a global customer success manager who maybe isn't as sales focused because they work with an AE who is, so that's possible. And then at that tier, you might be more conservative about expansion. It's really about retaining your whales. You might even look for somebody with more of a project management skill set, and which is very essential, managing multinational large organizations. Or maybe they have SME subject matter expertise. It's also not very cost advantageous to have a team-based approach for SMB. So, you kind of have to maybe have a totally different framework for SMB and enterprise. And then you can have CS wholly owning sales for SMB customers and a team-based pod approach for larger customers. And that's what we have. Okay. So you have the right segmentation, you have the right team. So what do you sell? In our organization, we actually had low-hanging fruit. So incremental user growth wasn't automated. CS had very little access to data. And so one of the first things that I provided was access to customer data and automating user counts and directly creating opportunities in Salesforce. With AI, I'm sure you can do even the next step after that. We also had new products to sell, including our new AI surveillance capabilities sometimes, but sometimes you don't have anything else to sell, and really your company's product strategy will dictate rate of growth. And for CS to sell effectively, compensation had to be aligned with desired behaviors. In our organization, CS gets paid commissions. And we we implemented incentives around multi-year renewals. Does anybody else get paid commissions? Few. Oh, just a few. We mostly do CSQL maybe, right? Okay, and then does anybody get paid more for multi-year renewals? Yes? Yes? A little bit? Oh, okay. So you gotta fight for that. We also were traditionally under-resourced for CS, and so we had to hire more people. And since we're a profit center, every hire CS added increased the bottom line. All right? Okay. So this is how we align compensation to desired behavior. You could have a totally different, percentage structure, but maybe 4 parts. Variable comp is maybe 30% of all of CS compensation. 10% of a CSM's bonus paid on retention, a lagging indicator of customer health. 10% paid on MBOs, things I need CSMs to do, like account plans and success plans. 10% on engagement. Are we meeting with customers at the appropriate cadence depending on the customer's tier? And commissions. That's what we have. It's not capped. And you can also implement CSQLs, which kind of act like commissions. And typically CS commissions are never the same as sales. I mean, we have like sitting ducks. They have to go and hunt. You guys know that. You could.
Can I ask? Does that mean you're like at 70-30?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that's
70-30-ish. Some of my customer success managers are like 50-50. So you can choose to also metric on NRR, as Jack mentioned earlier. I did notice when CS organizations were comped on commissions that really pushed growth more than KPI'd on NRR, right? Like obviously your incentives are that way. Companies with a lot of potential and in a growth period, you might want to use commissions to incentivize growth. And then companies with stable portfolios might want to use NRR with a stronger focus on retention. Okay. The essentials for CS stay the same. And when it comes to going from retention to revenue expansion, you need to plan, you need to shape your shot. You have to have account plans that that say, here's the goals, here's our targets, here's our timelines, here's the opportunities and risks for this company. You also need to get in front of your customers. It can't just be one person. We have to have multi-threaded stakeholder engagement. And you need to understand what your customers need, and you can't do that without talking to them. So those are the basics, and that's what you have to do that. All right. So here's some risks. Being too, if your compensation is commission heavy, your team might lose sight of being the trusted advisor, and conversations might become very transactional. And then without clear rules of the road between sales and CS, you might get a lot of land grabbing or lack of trust. So it's really important for sales and CS leadership to have that there's transparency and then alignment between sales and CS leadership. And then CSMs have to have boundaries. You're the customer's gatekeeper, and you have to have strong account control. It's going to engender a better customer experience. All right, so here are some resources for you. Some of those who might want to sharpen more of your sales skills, you can listen to 30 Minutes to President's Club. It's very sales focused, and sometimes even a little bit SDR, BDR focused. But I really liked it. It's very well done. They summarize first, like a good presenter, and then they go through the session. It's very easy to bite-sized. Yeah, it's very easy to digest and absorb. So that's pretty good. LinkedIn Learning is free with your library card, and it actually has like pretty decent amount of resources in sales and customer success. So I highly recommend. Sometimes your companies will sponsor it. And then I took a sales training course at the Kellogg School of Business at Northwestern University. I think it's about $3,000. I think it's okay. It really is kind of more like the consultative sales approach. You could probably learn most of it through ChatGPT today, but I like that I was forced to do like practicing and exercise like every week with like my colleagues. And then for those of you guys, I don't know if some of you guys saw that Enneagram type. For those of you guys who've never done an Enneagram test, highly recommend. I think it's so much better than Myers-Briggs, and it's free. It's a free test, and it helped me to really understand like what motivates me, what depletes me, actually. So just highly recommend, just as a side note. And that's it. Yeah.
Let's get the Slido back up, because I know there's lots of questions. I actually have, if you don't mind, Mary, I have a question for this audience here, because you brought up the idea of the different team structures of AE, or which one's owning revenue, or is it CSM plus AE or a pod? I'm just curious with a show of hands. I always find this curious on how other companies' CS organizations are put together. So which of your organizations has this AE or the CSM exclusively owning revenue in your team, commercial activities? Anyone here? Okay, we got one. Okay, that's what I would have expected. What about it's a shared responsibility, AE plus CSM? Shared. Okay, good. And then what about the pod approach, where it's a team effort? Okay, that's interesting. Well, I would have expected the trend to be more on that pod approach, at least maybe more complex enterprise sales.
Pods are expensive because you have so many resources. Like maybe you have like triple the amount of people on an account. So then basically what you have to do is triple the number of accounts that you're managing. Sometimes how it works. I also find that the person who's doing like the technical analysis is very busy. The CSM, super busy. Sales, not so much. So I feel like sales can probably be managing 2 pods, but we are rolling out pods at our organization.
Well, great. Well, definitely keep asking those questions. We have time for those. So Mary, should CSM be beginning of the sales process?
I don't know about the beginning, but I think Jack was mentioning at the close, when the sales AE is very close to closing, customers want to know who's going to be, sales AEs are your girlfriend or boyfriend maybe, and your CSM you're getting married to, right? So who's going to be my spouse, partner? So like, do you want to know who's going to be that person? And it's advantageous to say, you're going to have a dedicated customer success manager. Not everybody even has that model anymore, right? Like sometimes we have a scaled approach where not everybody has a customer success manager, but or dedicated. But yeah. There's a lot of questions. Yeah.
No, so when getting in front of your customers, your CSMs do it in person, or is it virtual? How do they do that?
Well, so it's a mixture. So obviously SMB enterprise. SMB, we just do everything virtually. Enterprise, we have to go see them in person. Yep. And there's more questions here, and there's more questions there. Yeah.
So something that in my org that is, I don't know, sales maybe is salesy, but I realized that towards the end, like, yes, we're kind of the closer in that sales process, but when we're realizing that maybe it's not a qualified customer, it's like too late, and so they've already kind of in the beginning sold the idea, and once we get there, we're like, this is not actually a good fit,
Okay.
or the best fit. It'll fit, but it's not going to be a nice fit. And so that's why we're like asking, should we be in the beginning of the sales process to actually
Qualify them.
Because our sales team isn't really selling, finding good prospects, and then we're kind of making it work, but then there's friction, and it often then leads from a CS to a product issue, and then it's just like a weird cycle of like that Spider-Man meme, where we're like pointing at each other, like, whose problem is it?
That's a lot of issues. It's like a product issue because you don't have it yet, but you're selling it. And then it's like a sales issue because they're selling something we don't really have. So I don't know. It's not our responsibility to qualify, like unless it's like post-sales customers. It's not our responsibility. And I think like when we have a bad customer experience, it is actually, I think our responsibility is like be the customer advocate. It's like, this is not, are we really doing this? Actually, I know CSM was like, I quit my job because they were doing that, like vaporware. There's a little bit of like, we have to sell the dream a little bit, right? But if it gets like too much or if it gets too unethical, like I said, maybe it's time to switch. I don't know. Yeah.
I jumped ahead, so I apologize for
Yeah,
that.
no worries.
So you already answered the question there about your CSMs in person or virtual. How about here from Addie? When it's a shared responsibility,
Yeah.
who is the eventual owner of the account?
We are married to them. So we are the owner. And actually, in our org, we still own renewals. We own the renewals, even though we work with sales in the enterprise level. And then we also actually own incremental increases in user counts. So we still actually own that. But when it's like a new product, or like the whole AI surveillance solution set that we have, then we do bring in sales. Sometimes in SMB, we don't. Actually, we do it all by ourselves. Yeah. It's kind of hard though. We have to like train, and everybody needs to learn it.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Yeah.
Please.
Question. Is it true also when you're dealing with procurement? Like, because that's one of the segmentation dimensions, in my opinion. Like, it's different when you're dealing with a business buyer versus when you're dealing with procurement.
Yeah, so I came into an organization, we are very good with dealing with procurement. So the problem is that we only deal with procurement now. And so we have to get out of that rut and talk to the business owners, who are the people who actually use this or know this and care for this. Procurement is different. Procurement is a different animal. Their main job is to get a lower price. Last year, that is their main job. It doesn't matter. Some of them are not that ethical. So you just have to be ready to have a really tough skin, thick skin, and come with knives in your elbows. Like, you got to be ready. Or bring somebody who is like maybe more ready, I don't know, but it's like you're going to have, and actually you can, have a target in your head that, you want this number, and you just kind of stick with it. It's like, sorry, can't do anything less than this, yes. But yeah, procurement's it's a different, there's also there's procurement vendors, which are a little bit worse, right? I think some of you guys have dealt with them because companies pay them to get a lower price on all of their contracts. They're a little bit tougher.
All right. How often are your CSMs meeting with your clients? bumped
Yeah,
up?
so in person, it depends, maybe like once a year. If you're local, so that's actually why, one of the reasons why we're so regional, like most of our customers actually are in New York City because we are in financial services pretty heavily. So anybody, SMB all the way to enterprise, can meet with customers in person. Take them out to lunch, bring them to our office, easy. But about once a year is like typical, where we bring like our entire executive team, their executive team, and we meet together. Once a year, once every 2 years, once every 1.5 years for like that big meeting. But every quarter, I mean, it's kind of like a typical good engagement model. And then, some of my CSMs meet with their customers every week, every 2 weeks, because we're working on projects together, right? That's where you want to be. It's like, I'm part of your team. I'm working on this initiative with you.
Great. How do you begin to fuse sales with customer success?
We are always selling, whether we're customer success or sales, right? Like we're trying to get a customer to say yes to, adopting something, saying yes to looking at something. So I think we already are natural. And actually, the best kind of sales is consultative. The best kind of sales is like, I'm going to do this for you. So I think we're like 80% there. And I think like the 20% is like maybe contract negotiations, maybe, where, it might be helpful to do a little bit of training and things like that.
I think we can maybe all relate to this one here. I found it difficult to attribute renewals to CSMs, even to participant sales, because products point to new features, AEs are involved and take credit for closed deals. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, we do so much work, guys. We do have a CS Wins channel where I have the CFO, CPO, CEO, they're all in there. So it's like, hey, we got this multi-year deal with a 30% increase in renewal value. Congrats to my CSM and the team that helped us bring that across the board. But it's okay. It's okay to be a team-based win. Like it should be, especially in enterprise. You have to have teams to help you win that big deal. And you might not just own it all by yourself. And that, I think we have to be okay with that.
Great. So our CS team has a renewal specialist position who helps with pricing and is allowing the CS to focus on building the relationship. What do you see the benefits or maybe the pitfalls with that?
Yeah, I mean, that's actually similar to having an AE with you. I think one of the best benefits is somebody can be the bad cop and somebody can be the good cop. And it's not always you being the bad cop. Like with the renewals manager, maybe you're the good cop, right? So the renewals managers, they have a job. They have to get maybe a 10%, 15% increase. And you're working with them and the customer to say, like, what is it that you guys really need? How can I help you? Maybe translate between the renewals managers and the customer. But yeah, I have seen that role popping up.
How do you coach your CSMs in commercials without stepping on the toes of your sales team? And do you have a RACI that you use to help define those rules of engagement?
So in my organization, actually, like SMB is like, we're doing all the sales. So I don't really step on anybody's toes. Actually, sales stepping on my toes. It's like, why are you coming into my? Oh, it's a big account. Okay, all right. So I think one of the things that sales might complain about customer success is that maybe we're not good at those sales conversations. So I think we need to get better at those sales conversations. I mean, we are doing consultative sales all the time, but we do have to get a little bit better. And I think actually a lot of this customer success best practices, if we do those things, we will get respect from our sales counterparts. Like if we know the account, if we have multi-threaded relationships and engagements, we are doing our job. And that's like a sales job. Multi-threaded stakeholder engagement, getting in front of customers. So I think that's where we get the respect. We know our customer, we know what they need. But I think a lot of times it's like, we don't know. It's like, I don't know, I haven't really talked to them because I have 50 accounts, And that's why we kind of lose respect from the sales team. So I want us to be the team that gets the respect. And, and sales, maybe they deserve to be in our box. So.
Well, that's great, Mary. That was great. Really appreciate great questions.
Yeah.
Give it up for Mary this morning. All right, and great engagement so far this morning in all the questions. Keep those questions going. We're going to go into our 30-minute break right now. We have coffee, some snacks out there, hang out with the vendors. Be back here by 10:45 for our next session by Patrick on transitioning from reactive to proactive.